Wife cheated. I am so angry I am scared of myself. So I'm a little perplexed. It's been approximately 2 weeks since I found out, and I've been skeptical for a long with several red flags but nothing conclusive. I decided to address her, and her response, uncontrolled rage, prompted me to do so. How can I accuse her of such a thing? She would never, ever cheat. It made me certain. I snooped on her phone and computer but found nothing. So I purchased several little cameras and placed them about the home. Then, during the weekend, I went to see some pals. I grew up in Norway on the Swedish border, and I met my wife in Sweden when I was 20 years old. She was 21 years old, and she had a 3-year-old child at the time. We clicked, and I've become that kid's father for the last 11 years. I adore him and consider him to be my son. It doesn't matter that we've been married for 6 years. To cut a long tale short, I went home early knowing she wouldn't be there and watched the film. Sure enough, she was having an adult conversation with another male. I knew him as a coworker named Theodore, and we got along well with him and his wife. I used to think seeing red was simply a metaphor, but I was seeing red. I've never been so upset in my life. I'm really a fairly quiet man who seldom gets angry, but I just lost it. I slammed at the walls and slammed the bedroom door so hard. It flew off its hinges and broke a glass table in our living room. I didn't even realize I was biting the inside of my cheek. But as I shouted, I splattered blood on the wall and the floor. I managed to hit my head really hard at one point, which jolted me out of it. When I saw the carnage, I realized I had to get out of there. If my wife had come in at that time, I'm quite sure I'd be in prison. In the best-case scenario, there is domestic violence. In the worst-case scenario, there is murder. I immediately packed a bag with necessities and my laptop. I deal with simulation and modeling, and my computer is custom, which I need to complete my job. I emailed a copy of the tape to Theodore's wife, but I didn't include anything else in the message other than your husband is cheating on my wife. I ran into my kid right outside our apartment complex, hugged him, and told him I would always love him, but his mother was cheating on me, so I had to go. I genuinely hate telling him. He shouldn't have to bear that load, but I wasn't feeling myself at the moment, and it just spilled out of me. I went to the border because I wanted to meet my relatives in Norway, but they wouldn't allow me through due to COVID. I've been staying at a cheap Airbnb, working but feeling like a zombie, and haven't spoken to my wife. My son is the only one to whom I have reacted. He's been asking me questions, and I've been as honest as possible with him about the fact that I don't know what's going to happen next, other than divorce. I've been looking for a reputable lawyer, and I've gotten hundreds of mails from my wife and her relatives. I haven't replied to any of them. As far as I am aware, my parents are the only people who are aware of what is going on in my life. I don't want to speak to my friends since they are also friends with my wife, so I don't have much support right now. I'm terrified that if I speak to her or see her again, I'll lose it and say or do something I'll regret. I also don't want to lose touch with my kid, but I'm not sure where to begin. I'm still enraged and don't know how to move over it. I need to reply to my wife at some point, but I'm so enraged that I don't believe I'm sensible. I simply wanted to try writing it down and see if it helped. Thus far, it hasn't made any difference. Story 2. My husband cheated on me with his friend's wife. My spouse had an affair with his friend's wife. I've been married to my spouse, a 35-year-old man, for 13 years. This isn't the first instance of adultery in the relationship, but it may be the straw that breaks the camel's back. My spouse, H, is a contractor, specializing in interior remodeling, and he does a fantastic job. Throughout his time doing it, he's gained a lot of acquaintances and connections. He's worked a lot with one buddy, B, in particular, and they both assist each other out. B is around my husband's age, and his wife, S, is roughly my age. B and S would often invite us to parties and barbecues, but I would always reject. I don't make friends readily, and I don't like drinking, which B and S do. Even yet, it was kind of them to offer an invitation. After a few years, they wind up living around 8 minutes away from us due to a storm that destroyed their house. H begins going over to B and S's residence to visit B and discuss work. They become better friends and drinking companions. B comes over to our house from time to drink and hang out with H. At this time, I haven't met B's wife. Only she's a B. And she has a drinking problem, have I heard. B begins to tell me that I need to meet his wife since we've all known each other for years, and she's beginning to suspect that I'm sleeping with B. What the heck is going on? Let's fast forward to the start of this year. Heavy rains pounded our area. B and S's home floods, causing damage, mold, and a big headache as a result of the corporation that rents the property to them. They both want to leave by the end of July/August. H and I observed that a home on our street at the entrance to our development is now available for rent, and H informs B and S look at the home the same day, fall in love with it, and sign a lease the following day. H chooses to be nice and assist B and S with their relocation. I eventually meet S as we provide our trailer for them to utilize in moving their possessions. She seems irritated and furious in general. She didn't really say anything to anybody. My husband will continue to assist them with moving for the following 3 days, until they are properly situated in. Then my husband resumes his drinking and socializing with his pal. My husband's great-grandma died in the second week of August, and we go for the funeral. When we return, B and S invite us to a barbecue. We had agreed initially, but my job ran really late. I was exhausted and all I wanted to do was take a shower and sleep. H proceeded to join them. That night, I got a text saying that B hadn't handled his drink well and had passed out on the sofa, and that H was on his way home. After a few hours, it's near to midnight. There is still no evidence of H. When I call, it goes to voicemail. H arrives home 30 minutes later, thoroughly stinking of booze. He apologized for the delay. He and S started conversing and discovered they had a lot in common. H walks over to the shower, but before he can undress, he hears a tap on the door. I respond, and it's S. H rushes to the door and joins her on the front porch. H asks if I want to join them, and I, in my PJs, perplexed about what the H is going on, but too exhausted to make sense of the red flags flying, say no. She soon departs, and I ask H what she was up to. He stated something to the effect of she's just drunk and whining about BH is in a bad mood the following day. Then there was the following day, and the next. At one point, I made a light-hearted remark about how he seemed to have recently knocked a female pregnant. H is consuming an increasing amount of alcohol. I spend almost every evening at B and S's residence getting drunk. I do express my worries, but I am treated with animosity throughout the remainder of the month and into September. He begins making remarks about how I've let myself go, or how I irritate him. We eventually sort things out, and he decides to quit drinking. He claims he doesn't like the person he becomes when he drinks. The 18th of September. H wants to spend quality time with me after being called into work to assist me in getting home. He's cooked supper, and we're going to watch a movie together. He's texting someone during the first 30 minutes of the film. When I ask him who he's smiling at, he replies he's chatting to another male buddy, and they just said something humorous. After about 10 minutes, there comes a hammering and a rapid ringing of the doorbell. H responds, and it's BB says he needs to speak to him, then turns to face me and adds, "You too." We both go outdoors, and B and S are sitting on our porch. They've been F******ing, B adds as he offers me S's phone. Stunned, I read the two's lovey-dovey messages and then handed him the phone back. B storms away, and S pursues him until they reach the street. She returns her gaze to H, as if she wants to say something but can't since my startled self is present. She ultimately leaves, and H comes to me in tears. He apologized, stating he never intended for it to happen. It happened once. They were inebriated. He had no recollection of it. It had no significance. I eventually wind up strolling down the street by myself to B and S's place. I ask her whether it was a one-time occurrence. She confirms that they were both incredibly inebriated and that it was a mistake. I then inquire whether they utilized any kind of protection, to which they respond that they did not. B claims he's going to file for divorce and leave in the morning. I return home and go to bed. I wake up on September 19 with a clean brain. I sit down with H and tell him that I want to attempt to solve this problem, but first I need to understand what occurred. He claims he still wants to be with me and that he loves me. I advise him he can't speak to her anymore and that he should call her and tell her so. After hours of him insisting he's not going to do it, he eventually does it over the speaker. The next week, we met on a regular basis to discuss all that had occurred.